Following the Pinkerton tour, Weezer went on hiatus after a volatile reaction to their sophomore record. From 1997 to early 1998, Rivers Cuomo chose to focus on a side project of his, located back in the East Coast, known simply as the band Homie, known as a supergroup that played in the Boston area at small clubs. To Cuomo, the small shows were a much-needed retreat from the hectic life he had been living for the past couple years. During one of his first shows, Rivers Cuomo played with Kevin Stevenson, Zeph Courtney, and most notably, bassist Mikey Welsh. Eventually, in February of 1998, Cuomo disbanded Homie and traveled back to Los Angeles to work on new music with Weezer, only for Matt Sharp to announce his exit from the band in April of 1998, following creative differences. With the exit of Matt Sharp from the group, the charismatic Mikey Welsh was later announced as the replacement bassist. However, developing new music proved to be difficult. Following creative disagreements, the band disbanded once again and went on hiatus throughout the rest of 1998 and most of 1999. Things were starting to look bleak for Weezer as it was beginning to fall into the depths of obscurity. But eventually, word got around about the band. Suddenly, forums and message boards had sprung up all over the web, with discussions of mid-90s rock bands hitting a chord with users. In the online world, Weezer had become something to celebrate. Fans and critics had grown to love Pinkerton, and eventually, in the year 2000, Weezer was invited to perform various shows around the globe with new regenerated popularity. This renewed interest struck optimism within the band. In fact, the band even got to play a gig during the highly popular Warped Tour in 2000. Cuomo said this in an interview.
We went in there fully expecting to be booed and have things thrown at us, but it was exactly the opposite. People were singing along to all the songs and just going crazy, giving us the best support. And I think that's the confidence we needed.
Now in the 21st century, Geffen had entrusted Weezer once again by signing them for a third album to be released in 2001. The band eventually settled on working with Rick Ocasek once again, but produced their Blue album in an effort to return to the basics of engineered pop hits. As for the cover art for their third album, the band wanted to start over, simply calling their third record Weezer, and harboring back to the simplicity of the Blue album with the respective band members as the cover. However, this time, the band chose a green-colored backdrop to distinguish the third album from their first record. Welcome back to Keeping It Weezer. Today we will discuss the ever so less personal world of the Green Album, released on May 15th, 2001, otherwise known as the first Weezer album I ever listened to. Let's get to it.
Don't Let Go, I just started strumming these chords and started singing. One word came out after the other and I had no idea what I was singing about. And then at the end it was a full song and I still don't even know what it's about. And there's a lot of songs I've written like that, especially on the Green album. When I was writing them, they were just coming out so fast I had no idea what I was talking about.
The writing for much of the Green album was instantaneous. Rivers Cuomo would sit down with his bandmates, they'd start playing something random, and there the song was written. In fact, in preparation for the Green album, the band ended up developing at least 75 different demos, which they weeded their way through in order to find the diamonds in the rough for the Green album. The entire recording process for Green lasted a little over a month. Such an accelerated process of production may have attributed to one of the biggest criticisms against the album, which is that it's bland and too same-ish, but more on that later. Nevertheless, Don't Let Go, the first song on the Green album, made it in, a suffice enough song that brings Weezer back to its basics. Keep in mind, the Green album was released in 2001, an almost full 5 years following Pinkerton, so a lot had changed for the bandmates. Girl problems, however, were still at the heart of Weezer. Don't Let Go details the story of someone who will be there for their girl no matter what, always in their arms through thick and thin. However, if she were to break up with him, he'd be begging for her to stay. I prefer the later renditions to this song, including the 2005 AOL Sessions version. The guitars are more dynamic and the vocals are more notable, with the entire song being in higher key. I do appreciate the lightheartedness of the song, however. After going through Pinkerton, it's nice to hear something that isn't as screeching or in your face with its emotion. Not that that was necessarily bad per se, but this song is a nice change of pace of what we've gotten before. You could definitely sense that Cuomo was in a way better headspace when he created this record. He was no longer in the dark period within his life, but we'll see if that transitions into a more diverse record.
If you want it, you can have it, but you gotta learn to reach out there and grab it.
Let's talk about Mikey Welsh, the bassist for the band during the Green Album era. Born in New York in 1971, Welsh got into music at a young age, moving to Boston to perform in small shows.
The first time I ever met Rivers Cuomo was in a bar in the South End of Boston called The Deluxe. It was after John Spencer Blues Explosion Band. I was sitting at the table with several friends just hanging out when Rivers walked up with a couple of guys from the band. We were all starstruck about seeing Rivers Cuomo, and we started talking about how much we loved his band. I was trying not to look at him when suddenly he turned and started walking directly towards where I was sitting. He came up to me and asked me if I was Mikey, the bass player. I stammered out that I was. He told me that one of the guys from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones had recommended that we tried playing together, that we'd probably hit it off. We did. This was probably around the spring of 1997. Rivers went off that summer to tour in Pinkerton. It was late August when he finally called me. We ended up doing a lot of hanging and jamming together, ultimately playing 2 shows in Boston as the Rivers Cuomo Band. In January of 1998, I flew to Los Angeles to officially audition for Weezer. After 3 or 4 days of playing together, Rivers took me out to dinner in California Pizza on Pico Boulevard in Hollywood. He was about to ask me a question, and my life would forever change.
He was completely starstruck. He loved being in the band and had so much fun on tour, often citing the entire experience as one of the most fantastic times in his life. So when it came for the music video on the second track of Green titled Photograph, why didn't he star in it? Like with many musicians in the industry, Mikey Welsh dealt with a series of problems, most of them drug-related, which we'll get to at a later point. In place, another bassist named Scott Schreiner took Mikey's place, and he appears in Photograph's music video. A music video that highlights the Green Album tour and rejects Welsh's impact on the record, which is ironic, because Mikey Welsh's work on the Green Album is fairly critical with many backing vocals all throughout the album, including prominent ones in Photograph. The song itself is enough to carry some merit, nothing too exciting. Lyrics aren't jaw-dropping or anything, just a song about looking for love in an ever-so-beaten-down world. I associate it with memories of a love from long ago, and trying to find someone who is capable of producing that magic once again. In the summer of 2000, Weezer demoed a group of songs to play during their various gigs during their comeback tour. At Warped Tour, their setlist included Blue and Pinkerton tracks, while also including a rotation of 4 to 14 new Weezer tracks. Many fans had speculated that all these songs were going to appear for their third project. So when the Green Album finally came out, they were shocked to find out that only 1 out of the 14 made it in. That's right, Hashpipe was the lead single for the Green Album, and to general listeners worldwide, was the first taste of Weezer in 5 years. Geffen was really banking on the Green Album to succeed, so a return to a produced style that fit the power pop crazed industry of the early 2000s was essential. However, when it came to releasing Hashpipe as the first single, the label fought with Cuomo to instead make Don't Let Go as the lead single. Cuomo went on to state in an interview,
They wanted something more straight up. Man, it was a huge fight. I got up in a meeting with all the executives and I was screaming.
So why was Geffen so worried about this song being the lead single? Well, for one, Rivers Cuomo described this song as being about a, quote, homosexual transvestite prostitute, unquote. I mean, to Geffen, it was a bizarre concept for a song, and not only that, they wanted something more friendly and straight up in regards to the first Green Record single. The argument here is that the lyrics to this song are very much out there with its various references to drug use. No official lyric sheet to this song exists, but when I first listened to this song, I thought the lyric, "Whoa, I got my eyes wide," was actually, "Whoa, I got my ass wide," while others have disputed it's actually, "I got my ass wipe." Now, how do these lyrics relate to a, quote, homosexual transvestite prostitute, unquote, you may ask? Well, as stated before, no official lyric sheet exists for this song, and since the entire idea of this song is prostituting in order to purchase narcotics, well, the lyric of having their ass wide seems to make a little more sense now, doesn't it? You know when something's really bizarre and the obligatory question of were they on drugs when they made this comes up? Well, yes, they indeed were. In a 2009 interview, Rivers Cuomo described how he wrote the song.
I've always been an analytical person, but for a couple of years I just got really analytical in keeping track of every detail of the process of writing a song, and intentionally varying individual elements to see what the result would be. but sometimes these experiments were indistinguishable from how any other rock band would write a song. For example, in mid-2000, somehow my experiments evolved to the point where step 1 was take a pill of Ritalin, step 2 was take 3 shots of tequila, step 3 was go out in the backyard, sit down in a chair, step 4 was close your eyes and imagine the song. And that's how I wrote Hashpipe.
The music video to this single makes things even stranger. It's just a bunch of sumo wrestlers doing their thing while the band plays a song. At some point, the sumo wrestlers even switch positions with the band, becoming guitarists themselves. One last thing, this song also holds a famous clip celebrated far and wide within the Weezer community. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Brian Bell Impossible Bend. So essentially, Bell performs a move in which he's bending backwards, taking the guitar with him, then thrusts his legs in the way that he's bending. Due to the sheer difficulty of performing this move, it has been described as the Impossible Bend. Legendary, to say the least. A relaxed Southern California spirit. That's what Island in the Sun encapsulates the most. Island in the Sun was first written and demoed back in 1999 with a more notable amount of acoustic elements. While visiting Cuomo at his home, Brian Bell noticed the list of song titles written on Cuomo's walls. The titled Island in the Sun instantly caught his attention, and he became enamored with the composition. During the Green Album recording sessions, the song was reworked to have a cleaner and more unique presentation compared to the other songs on Green that were heavier in guitars. Island in the Sun has 2 different music videos. The first one is more obscure and has the band attending a Mexican couple's wedding. It's fun. I mean, just look at this kid go. Dude, he's getting it. It all looks so genuine. It's obvious that within the time span of 5 years, Cuomo had begun to exit from the depressing show he had enclosed himself in on Pinkerton. With Pinkerton, I think about dark clouds and despair, while with Green there's a sense of blue skies and summer fun. Sure, Green may not be as dense as Pinkerton, but I believe Weezer's return to a wilderness vibe similar to that of Blue was necessary in order for the band to succeed in the 2000s. The second music video was created due to MTV executives disliking the Mexican wedding video. MTV refused to re-air Island in the Sun, leading Weezer to reshoot a music video that was more accessible to audiences. The second video is alright. Mikey Welsh had left the band shortly before the filming of the second music video, so the picture just has Cuomo, Bell, and Patrick Wilson playing with a couple animals. It's cute, but I prefer the Mexican wedding one as it reinforces the idea of making memories with loved ones. I mean, the coolest thing about this video is that Rivers Cuomo hangs out with a monkey and mimics some of its movements. I get it though, the message of the song is about having no care in the world, and animals present the idea of being free and being connected to nature. Island in the Sun has become arguably Weezer's biggest hit of all time. It was one of the main reasons why I got into Weezer in the first place. Back in the summer of 2017, this song was one of my gateways to listening to the band. It made me go ahead and listen to my first Weezer album, which as stated prior was the Green Album. Combined with Girl Trouble lyrics, Green opened my eyes to a new genre of music I hardly ever explored in depth. Island in the Sun's laid-back and warm demeanor has become a staple in terms of summer nights. In this sense, one's Island in the Sun is based on their own memories. Like the music videos entail, this song brings back summer remembrance of roasting hot dogs over a bonfire, driving up and down an old road listening to tunes, and most of all, cherishing the people you were once with. Its popularity has been displayed time and time again in pop culture, and within individuals. For example, in 2018, 19-year-old singer Hira Yakinetti experienced a phenomenon known as music-triggered epilepsy, caused by a tumor in her brain. The epilepsy, once triggered, made her tone deaf and have seizures. She required surgery to have the tumor removed, and in order to preserve her singing, she had to be awake during the surgery. So to get her through the surgery, she decided to sing Island in the Sun, and to make her even more comfortable, the doctors began to sing along with her as well. Once Weezer found out about the story, they reached out to Kira and invited her to come on stage with them during one of their concerts. The whole entire story is very beautiful. I can never get tired of Island in the Sun. It's truly one of the most masterful pieces of composition I've ever listened to. It gives me goosebumps and always takes me back to my own Island in the Sun. So why was Mikey Welsh missing from the past few music videos? Well, on August 11th of 2001, 3 months following the release of the Green Album, and right before the tour, friend of the band and Weezer historian Karl Koch revealed that Mikey Welsh was having health problems.
I've learned that Mikey has not come to rehearsals in LA yet due to some sort of private medical problem. No, not a cliche rockstar drug problem. He has been holed up in Boston near his family. The rest of the guys are waiting for word, but have decided there's so much work coming up for the band that they'd better try out some bass players in case Mikey can't make it. So in between learning the new songs with just Brian, Pat, and Rivers in rehearsal, they've begun trying out different bass players, which as any band knows is extremely difficult. That's all I know for now, and we'll keep you posted.
As mentioned prior, Mikey Welsh failed to stay in the band in time for the filming of the second Island in the Sun music video. Mikey was missing in action until eventually Karl Koch made a statement on August 14th.
Today we have a little more. We've learned that Mikey is checked into a psychiatric hospital, we think in his hometown of Boston. However, we unfortunately still don't know what's wrong with him, and continue to find it very difficult to find out any more from those who might know. We wish him the very best and we hope he comes back soon. But in the meantime, due to circumstances at hand with the upcoming tour and such, we are indeed hastily scheduling tryouts for a replacement player to the upcoming gigs, just in case Mikey isn't able to return.
Something was happening behind the scenes, and fans of Weezer didn't know what to make of it, until a final statement was made about the situation regarding Mikey Welsh's place in the band. On August 19th, Karl Koch announced Scott Schreiner as the new bassist for Weezer, and Mikey's departure from the band.
What's going on between Mikey and Weezer is a private matter, as it has been since day one, and there will be no further announcements, news, or speculation in this space till everyone involved is ready to make any statements on the matter. I'm sorry it has to be this way, and I know how concerned some of the fans have gotten over this, but at this point you can at the very least rest assured that Mikey is safe. When there's more news on this, it will be here. In the meantime, the band will continue to rock out with Scott on bass, and the success of the recent shows has shown that he can wield the bass with the best of them.
Crab is the midway point on the record and the first of the series of songs on the album that feel same-ish. According to Rivers Cuomo, the song is about a heterosexual guy's frustration with the opposite sex. It is the idea of pinching and pulling someone closer to you, but they keep exiting your life due to their own problems or own general disinterest towards you. However, Crab may be the most prominent album to display the troubles with Green and its manufacturing. The song has a great solo, but the lyrics are oh so pointless and repetitive. It doesn't bring much to the imagination. One of the biggest gripes to many fans about the later half of this album is how corporate and safe it seems, and that may be at the fault of Geffen, as they didn't want the band to pull anything as risky as displayed on Pinkerton. It is in this instance where it can be deemed that the second half of this album is insincere. To the most critical of Green, Rivers Cuomo may as well be singing about nothing. In the years following Pinkerton, Rivers Cuomo took time to study the band Green Day. In fact, Knockdown Dragout follows similar lyrics to Green Day's rock piece, Worry Rock, on the album Nimrod. To go even further, Worry Rock is inspired by the song Nowhere Man by the Beatles, which in turn is about John Lennon in his 20s trying to comprehend his own fame and how unhappy he is with it all. Similar to River Cuomo's entire thought process during the writing of Pinkerton, or Billy Joe Armstrong's ideology post-Dookie, apparently being a rock star isn't as great as one would think of it to be. Here are three different men who have strived for success, and once they had all finally hit the jackpot, they became lost. To make things even more interesting, both Knockdown Dragout and Worry Man have Beatle-ish solos. It's really cool. All three of these songs come across as bittersweet in terms of their composition and messages. Knockdown Dragout is what I consider one of the better tracks of the series of same-ish songs in the later half of the Green Album. In the fall of 2017, I was undergoing a series of my own personal problems. I was transitioning from high school into college and experiencing girl troubles. Although many may consider the lyrics on Green to be vapid, at the time I first listened to the project, it didn't come across that way. Cuomo's whining and hoping that this girl would come back to him really spoke to me, and my connection and fascination with Cuomo and his band has continued to this day. Knockdown Dragout certainly is one of the better songs on this record. So, Geffen's influence may have resulted into the entire genericness that was Green. To hammer this point even more, Green has a lot of cookie-cutter pop rock songs. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad per se, but it does make things less interesting. During the recording sessions of the Green Album, the label made a surprise visit to the studio, and they were not too happy with the project and the songs that were chosen. Karl Koch went on to state,
Very lengthy debates and discussions of what should, shouldn't, could be done with the tracks have led to renewed attempts to nail down some songs. Later, after intensive internal debate within the band, a few songs got the boot, their slots in the final running taken over by others that were bubbling under.
Doubt on the record began to take shape, but Rivers Cuomo didn't fear.
I've got to tell you, this stuff is starting to sound amazing. The sounds, the playing, the songs, the arrangements are beginning to crystallize. And while there's still a lot more work to do, including the crucial solos and vocal work, the foundation these guys are laying down is blowing me away. I really can't believe the criticism we've encountered on this project so far. I, for one, believe the naysayers will be proven utterly wrong.
In aspects, Rivers Cuomo was correct in the crystallization of the arrangements. Smile is a short rock and roll slow jam that blends well. It's romantic and is more clever lyrically in comparison to other songs on the record. The line, "Water me girl, let me ease the drought," God, I've always loved that lyric. Back in 2001, the band advertised this album as the Beatles with power chords, and Smile encapsulates this idea perfectly. And that solo, it's like an internal combustion. It sounds so satisfying. It's sad to say that after this, the compression of the tracks start to get bland. The real reason behind Mikey Welsh's departure was kept under wraps for years, until finally in 2007, Welsh revealed that he indeed had a nervous breakdown on the eve of the Green Album tour.
Basically, a lifetime of doing drugs and being undiagnosed as having bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and borderline personality disorder finally caught up to me when I was 30 years old. At the beginning of a 3-month European tour with Weezer, I started slowly falling apart. Without getting too graphic, by the time the tour was winding up, my weight had gone down to about 140 pounds. I'm 6'2", and mentally completely wiped out. When I returned to the States, my family had made plans for me to see a psychiatrist in Boston. First, though, we had to play a few dates around the US and perform on The Tonight Show, which ended up being my last performance with Weezer. By the time I got to Boston, I was having a complete nervous breakdown. It ended with a severe suicide attempt, an overdose. I was found and rushed to a hospital, where I had come to within minutes of my heart completely stopping. I was in a coma for a few days, and woke up in a lockdown psychiatric ward.
In the later half of 2001, Welsh returned to Boston, becoming a bassist for the Kickovers. In a possible rejection to Geffen, he stated this in an interview.
It's actually fun to just be playing in the studio without some major label idiot standing over your shoulder.
In another interview in 2002, he expressed frustration in regards to Rivers Cuomo and his removal of the band.
You have to coordinate things with other people, especially when you get to an enormous level like Weezer. It's a very serious dynamic. People have to be able to put their egos aside and listen to other people. I took some time to get some help for something and they basically took off on me, abandoned me. The way it went down was pretty lame. Being in a band with guys that long and being as good as friends as we were, having them kind of split was definitely cold.
Shortly following this interview, Mikey Welsh retired from music. He just didn't want to work in the industry any longer. Simple Pages is one of the more underwhelming tracks on Green, and an example of a type of song mandated by a quote-unquote major label idiot in order to manufacture an unimaginative hit. Don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible song by any means, but I believe it suffers the most in the series of same-ish songs caught in the record. It's so boring and repetitive with its lyrics. In fact, while researching for this video, I found virtually nothing of real note for this track. This track encapsulates the worst aspects of Green, that is, a vapid song of no real substance. When the Green Album was released on May 15th, 2001, it was met with generally favorable reviews. Rolling Stone wrote the record was a totally crunk geek punk record, buzzing through 10 excellent tunes in less than a half an hour, with zero filler. Did we listen to the same album? Entertainment Weekly described it as a return to their winning formula of sugary power pop and smartass rants, while the AV Club quoted it as feeling repetitive and perfunctory all the way through. Pitchfork was incredibly harsh on the record, calling it average from beginning to end, and lacking the sense of dynamics and intricacy that Pinkerton, and especially their debut, held in spades. And to cap it all off, New Musical Express said that the most irritating aspect of the Green Album is the maddening itch of wasted opportunity. Fans, on the other hand, were more positive to the record. In fact, the record came out to be a complete success, bringing in a new wave of Weezer fans. Green blew Pinkerton out of the water in terms of sales, eventually earning platinum status. Geffen had done it. Their constant eye on the project managed to transform the record into becoming a manufactured pop hit. Weezer had come back. For a short while, I thought Simple Pages and Glorious Day were the same songs due to how similar they sounded. Once again, what we have here isn't a bad song by any means. In fact, it's more interesting than Simple Pages. But I believe the song's place in the record and what preceded the track makes it a victim of circumstance. I like the opening melody to the song, but it has the same structure to almost all the other songs within the record. Glorious Day is all about potential and taking risks, unlike the album it's a part of. Once Mikey Welsh retired from music, he became an artist. By the time of August 2008, he had managed to do 13 various art exhibitions. Until 2005, Mikey Welsh's estranged relationship with Weezer was still rickety. However, on July 12, 2005, Mikey Welsh attended a Weezer concert in which Rivers Cuomo pointed him out to the crowd. To quote Karl Koch,
Rivers dedicated the last song of the set, Hashpipe, to Mikey, and surprised the crowd by saying Mikey had come down to visit and was watching the show. Rivers invited him to come down, and Mikey was really stoked to come say hi and see the old gang again. And the new gang. Scott gave him a very warm welcome. Mikey, the bass player in Weezer from 1998 to 2001, has moved on since those days, recovering from a dark period in his life with a successful art career, living up in Vermont with his wife and stepson, and says he never touches musical instruments anymore, preferring the visual medium entirely.
Perhaps time had healed the wounds that had been left after 4 years of Mikey Welsh's absence from the band. As the years went by, Mikey Welsh would attend a Weezer concert every now and then when the band would visit the East Coast for shows. In fact, on 2 separate occasions, in 2010 and in 2011, Welsh even played with the band. Peace had finally been made. In preparation for a Weezer concert that was going to take place on October 9th in Chicago, Welsh described his excitement on finally being able to go on vacation after months of working on artwork. He had booked a hotel in Chicago and was eager to hang out with his former bandmates following the show. On September 26, 2011, Mikey Welsh tweeted out this.
Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend. Heart attack in my sleep. Need to write my will today.
He later corrected the date to the weekend after next. On October 8th, 2011, the Rafaela hotel staff in Chicago found Welsh dead in his room. He was 40 years old. A drug overdose was presumptive as the cause of death, but test results were inconclusive in dictating so. On the day of the Chicago concert, Rivers Cuomo had this to say about his friend. Karl Koch had this to say.
Today is a hard day for Weezer and all Weezer friends, fans, and family. While everyone is still in shock over yesterday's tragic loss of Mikey Welsh, we know damn well he would have never wanted to stop The Rock at today's Riot Fest, the show he's planning on attending. On the contrary, The Rock was what he loved, both in music and art. To play the show and play it well tonight is to honor him and his memory. We have a feeling he will be watching.
In the bonus track to the Green Album, I Do, Rivers mourns a lover who promised to always be there, but went ahead and left him anyway. The song is incredibly inspired by Billy Joel's song, Leningrad, which told the tale of a Soviet circus clown named Victor. Victor made it his mission to see Billy Joel in concert, who was playing shows in Russia as a show of goodwill from the United States. Despite the two characters and their ideological differences, they learned to set those quarrels aside. It is the idea that two can truly work out any problems that may have arisen in the past, and to be able to move on from them, to venture into peace together. Welsh's demons had plagued him throughout his life, with struggles between drugs, mental illness, at one point even quoted stating this.
I'm unable to replace my demons with anything. It's impossible. I'm only able to hide from them for a few hours a day, more or less.
His dream of becoming a rock star had been met, but quickly spiraled to an obsession of substances. Despite his flaws, he continued to be loved by many. In the band's statement about Welsh's death, they said that Mikey was never one to shy away from the absurd, dangerous, or strange, and he did so with gusto few others had. No one had quite the stage presence of Mikey, nor have there been many who pulled the types of shenanigans he did at shows. If it rocked, he had to try it, and he always found a way to pull it off. When he emerged from his nervous breakdown that spelled his exit from the rock and roll world, he took on a new role as an astonishing and pure visual artist. It was a glorious flowering of a talent he'd always possessed, but he had chosen to rock out first and paint later. In the final song on Weezer's Green Album, Rivers Cuomo misses his ex-girlfriend, harboring back to the first song in the album, wishing to be in her arms once again. This is one of my favorite Weezer songs of all time. It's as simple as any other song found on Green, but it's so crushing to the listener with lyrics that seem to actually mean something. Rivers sounds in pain here, and 20 years following the release of this album, I can still hear the sorrows of long ago. With a soul-crushing guitar solo in the middle of this track, By the end of the song, he just wants to shout for her to come back, but she never will. So Rivers ends up taking pills to calm himself down, as that is the only method of comfort he has left. For the first Weezer album I have ever listened to, it definitely gives a lot of nostalgia of a stressful time period in my life. It introduced me to the world of Weezer that I still find myself mesmerized to this day. Despite its sameish and at times boring production, the highs on this record prove to be worth it to listen to, with guitar solos that are extravagant and more memorable than almost any other lyric on the record. Finally, as for the only Weezer album to feature Mikey Welsh in it, it proves to be successful enough as a comeback for the band. Here's to you, Mikey. May your legacy of being a rock star be forever etched onto this record, and your short time period in the band. Rest in paradise.